Benjamin Paz, welcome to the Map Forward podcast.
Thank you, Lee.
We met like a couple of weeks ago and we talked for a couple of hours on the phone from our very first conversation. So this is going to be a lot of fun. You are someone who fascinates the hell out of me, sir. So thanks for being here.
No, thank you for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here.
So why don't you tell everyone what you do and why you're particularly loved by so many people in the coffee industry? Because you're very well loved in the coffee industry.
I don't know. I don't know about that. Yeah, no. Well, I work for a coffee business, an exporting coffee business, and I got to meet wonderful people in the industry, and I basically, what my main job, it's to connect, like coffee producers and farmers with, like coffee companies buying coffee, and it's like an operation that has to do a lot with the personal connection with people,
Yeah.
and like I got to be very involved in that, like as how coffee is, that is very personal, and yeah, that's pretty much what I do, connect people with coffee.
So you are based in Honduras.
Yes.
And your family have a coffee mill.
Yes.
Called San Vicente.
Yes.
And you have coffee farms which you haven't found time to name yet.
just one, the main one.
The main
the
one.
other ones that already have names. But I'm working on it.
Well, when you get round to it, what happens? Explain this to me. What happens if somebody buys your coffee and they need to give it a name? What do they do?
It depends. It's usually they name it as like Benjamin. They put my name on the bags, and it's kind of annoying for some of them because they want to have the farm name.
Yeah, I mean, yes,
that's the normal thing. That's the normal and proper thing to do, and I haven't done it. Some of them,
are you being a rebel?
Like, I'm not. I'm just lacking ideas, and like it's like I mentioned it before. It was like naming a pet.
Yeah.
You have to feel it. It's not just like that. You just name the animal, or like you have to feel it. And I haven't really found the proper one for that specific farm. For the other ones was kind of like easy.
Okay.
But like a circumstance happened, something happened that, okay, that's gonna be the name, perfect. But for this specific farm, has been quite a challenge, and I've had a lot of people trying to name it, but we haven't really done it. But yeah, some people get really annoyed by the fact that I don't have a name for it. So it's like, oh, like you should just do it right now. We need it, and I'm like, no, I can't do that right now. I don't have it.
I have to tell you, that is really funny because so many people told me I had to have you on the podcast. And shout out to our mutual good friend, Felipe Croce, who he was the last person who mentioned you to me. I'm like, dude, please. Everybody keeps telling me I have to have Benjamin on the podcast and no one introduces us. Please, will you make an introduction? And so shout out to Felipe because he did. And here you are a few weeks later. So if everybody,
such a gentleman.
He is a gentleman. He's a true gentleman. And so tell me, if so many people know about you and keep telling me how good your coffee is, how did you make that happen if you're not naming your farms?
Well, I'm not. I got involved in the industry before being a farmer.
Tell us your story.
So, it's a long one.
We've got a couple of hours. You're good. We get comfortable. We are here to hear everything that is Benjamin. Cheers, by the way. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you. I forgot my coffee.
All good. I'll have some for you here.
Thank you. So yeah, I started working when I was a kid. Basically, the business is a family business. It's owned by my father, and he started the company in 1979. Um, this is way before I was born. So like he's been running it, and I was born in it pretty much.
Yeah.
And I always had to work, like during the weekends or vacations. Like when I was in school, I had to go there and like do whatever possible. Like I remember when I was like 8, 9, I started to like bring lunch to my dad.
Oh,
That was my kind of like my first job. My first job in coffee was just to bring lunch to my dad, like, and just to stay the afternoon. But this is like the weekends or like
family
Holy
business.
Week here or like Christmas, like the or vacation from school is in
the coffee farm
at the end of the year, right? Like I was lucky, kind of lucky, right? To have my vacations right during harvest.
So you could go to work on the farm during your vacation.
Yeah, so basically we didn't have a farm. My dad had a farm, but he dropped farming because of coffee leaf rust, the disease that affects trees. The leaves drop. The tree leaves drops the leaves, and yeah, he just like lost that, and he decided to do the business. So San Vicente basically is an exporting company. Back in those days, it wasn't an exporting company. My dad would buy coffee from producers and sell these to the exporters. So basically, it was a kind of like intermediate person, a broker kind of.
Did you guys have the mill then? Would you buy it as already processed coffee?
No, my dad started. We didn't have any processing facility.
Okay.
We only had a warehouse where we
you were
collected
the exporter, right?
Yeah, we didn't export. We only collected the coffee, and then we would take that coffee to the exporters.
Oh, okay. So you were
so
like
it
a
would be
middleman.
just a buy and sell, correct? A buy and sell operation.
Oh wow, okay.
And it wasn't until 2000 when my dad was finally able to do his own operation. So 21 years later, he was able to do his own exporting operation. And this is when he started milling and processing his own coffees. So during all that time, I would be, like in and out there, just, like working at certain times of the year. And, like lucky enough to be there in the busy times. And, as I grew up, like I took more responsibilities on different things, and I did pretty much, like every single job that you have to do in that mill. I've done it and I did it. And then, like after I graduated from college, because I had to go.
You had to go.
I had to go.
What did you study?
Yeah. I studied business management. At the beginning, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to study, I wasn't very sure. So I started studying industrial engineering.
Okay.
But I sucked really bad at math.
Well, it's kind of a prerequisite to do math if you want to be an industrial engineer, right?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that, and I was just very, very stupid. And I'm like, I was like halfway, like I was like, oh crap, this is not gonna work. No. I'm just gonna change it. And basically, so I just changed my mind, and I started doing the other thing, like business management. So I graduated from that, and like right after I was done, I came back to like permanently work at the facility, which was the end of 2008.
Okay.
And from there I started like working in the facility, and to respond to your question, because we haven't gotten there yet, few years before that, in 2005, we got involved in a specialty coffee. And this is when, like the specialty coffee community got introduced to us.
Right.
We were not aware. We were not really aware about what was happening. Like we didn't know that there were.
I don't think the specialty coffee community did either, in all fairness.
Yeah, totally. It was just, like a very unknown thing.
Yeah.
And then we heard about it, right? And this is because of Cup of Excellence. And are you familiar with Cup of Excellence?
Very. We had Darren Daniel on the podcast twice so far this year. He is
the boss.
fantastic.
He's the boss, and he's my boss as well.
He's such a knowledgeable, empathetic, logical man.
Yeah, I love Darren, and him leading COE has been a very successful thing, and the competition itself, put us in the mat pretty much.
So you guys won Cup of Excellence?
Yeah. Yeah, not with my farm. I placed once in 2018, but it wasn't like a big deal. Like the actual important part was, the opportunity that we had in that first year. So basically, in 2005, in 2004 was the first year when COE came to Honduras.
Okay.
And we didn't really know anything about it. Mm-hmm. We just saw the news, that there was this coffee competition that, rewarded farmers through an auction. And, the coffees were, awesome in terms of taste. And they got, a score and a ranking. And, there was, a coffee that was 95 points. That was the first place.
Wow.
And we were like, what is that?
What does it mean? Is 95 good?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. What is not at 100, right? If it's the best one. No, we didn't really know exactly what was happening. So my cousin, who was directing the operations at the mill back then when I wasn't involved, because I was in college, he was taking the decisions, and he saw all that, and he's like, we should just give the competition a try. And we should just, we knew we had high altitude here. So he was like, we should just talk to a couple of farmers and see what they have, get their coffees, taste them, and see what we can get.
Yeah.
So he got 2 coffees for 2005.
From where? So were they from
from the Santa Barbara Mountain, which is the region where we're based out of.
And your farm one of your farms is there?
All of my farms are in there, and the mill is just 30 minutes from the mountain.
Okay.
Just right here. It's right there.
Right there.
and we got these people, and we told them, hey, did you see about Cup of Excellence? Did you hear what's happening? It's we should give it a try.
Right.
So one of the farmers was like, yeah, fine, let's do it. So they got ready for 2005. The other farmer was like, I don't know, but if you want to try my coffee, just do it. So my cousin got the 2 coffees.
Okay.
And he tasted the coffees, and he was like, yeah, these coffees are good. But he didn't really have anything to compare with, right? He didn't really get to cup all of the other coffees that competed the year before. He only had an idea that the coffees could make it. So he got these 2 coffees. Okay. One that was prepared on purpose for the competition, and the other one that was just, separated from the rest of the coffees from these farmers who, he knew that had potential. So he submitted the 2 coffees in the competition. And,
under what name? So was it under
under the farmer's name.
Oh, awesome.
Under the farmer's name. So basically we were getting the coffees as a company, right?
Yeah.
From producers that were selling us their coffee normally, right? As a commercial coffee.
Yeah.
So we separated these 2 from there, and we submitted those in the competition under the names of the farmers.
How cool.
Yeah. So we were, pretty excited about this, and we submitted the coffees. They made it in the regional competition. Then they made it in the national stage. This is when, all of the coffees get cupped and they are sorted from the whole country.
Yeah.
And then they make it to the international stage. And this is when all of the judges from other countries come here to taste the coffees and also get involved in the potential, buying opportunity.
Yeah.
In the auction. So before that, the Santa Barbara in this area as a region had a really bad reputation because the way the coffee was treated, and because the coffee was because of the way the coffee was processed, and the actual region has, like the two types of quality. It has, like high elevation coffee and low elevation coffee. So that used to get mixed together.
Okay.
So the average quality was just okay. So people was kind of like surprised that that there were some coffee competing, like from Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. Let's see what happens. So so the two coffees made it to the final.
Wow.
And one of the coffees placed 18, and the other one placed first.
What? Oh,
Yeah.
I like stories with happy endings.
It placed first. And it's funny, Lee, because that coffee was from the farmer that didn't really care about.
No way.
So he wasn't really, like involved at all. He just like brought the coffee from his house, delivered the coffee. We tasted it and we were like, well, this might be a good one. And
it was.
and he won. And
what did it score?
Really
do you
funny.
Remember?
I don't remember, but it was like 91, 92,
wow.
something like that. It was a 90 plus. But the funny thing is that the farmer wasn't there.
Because he didn't think it really had a chance, or because he didn't care?
No one, both. Like he wasn't, like caring a lot. We didn't really know that he was going to make it all the way up there. And it was a surprise for everyone. And everyone was freaking out because, like the profile was very different.
Yeah.
The coffee was very unique. And it was kind of like a mystery because Santa Barbara didn't have a reputation back then. It wasn't good. It was like, yeah, all the coffee coming from there sucks. And, all of a sudden, but, like it's the COE champion. And
that's life-changing shit, right? Like once you win.
Completely, it's like like winning the lottery. It's just like the biggest opportunity ever in coffee. It's for like it means for a farmer, like it means for a nation to win the World Cup, right?
Yeah,
something like that. And we basically like freaked out, and everyone freaked out. The judges, like they were not expecting coffees from Santa Barbara. The profile was very unique, and there was this connection in between the people organizing the event, which is the Honduran Coffee Institute, and the farmer, because like there wasn't really like a background relationship, or like like a presence of the institute here in the mountain with these producers, because all of them were kind of like small and were kind of like isolated. So not even them knew what was happening. Like it's just a Santa Barbara coffee.
Yeah, wow.
And buyers wanted to know what was happening. And, and they all came to my cousin and the other farmer, Miguel, who was there. And he was the one who picked the trophy, right? The other producer, not the actual winner. So they basically, the judges and everyone, they basically decided to wait for the farmer to get there. So my cousin came all the way from the city to pick him up at his house.
And brought him back.
And brought him to the ceremony award, and they were waiting for him until like 10, 11 p.m.
Wow.
to meet him. It was really funny.
Was there something very different about his processing methods compared to the rest of the way that people were producing coffee in Honduras? Or that
it was just the normal way to process commercial grade coffee.
Hold on. The normal way to process commercial grade coffee, and he won Cup of Excellence.
Correct.
Explain that to me. Explain, like, there's got to be some magical woo-woo shit going on there.
so yeah. So that's why like, and that responds to the question, like why I know a lot of people now, and this is because of that mountain and farmers like Natividad, the guy who won that year, and qualities and coffees like his coffee. Like that's what put us in the map, and like, and I represent people like and I started to represent them. So basically, like this name went out there, and these buyers that were, like important buyers back then, like coming to the events, like people from, like Intelli when they're, like when they were just starting, people from Stumptown, people, just to say some names, like people from Kaffa in Norway who ended up buying that coffee on the auction, like, and all of them were surprised, and, like they wanted to, like to meet the producer. and they wanted to get to know the area, and we were the only connection, right? So this is when
That's
we
amazing.
started to participate in this. So the years after 2005, we started like to find more people like Natividad, more people like Miguel. We found out that like Miguel's brothers were also coffee farmers. Like we knew when we already were buying coffee from Natividad's brothers and neighbors. And they had, like same altitude, same varieties, same growing conditions. So it was just a matter, like of talking to them and convincing them to prepare their lots for us. So we did. And, like in 2006 and 2007, we presented more coffees in the competition. We placed, like all of the coffees that we submitted in the auction made it, in the competition, sorry, made it. And we got, like second place.
Wow.
And again, but, like we were part of it. But it wasn't until 2008 when really things started to be attractive for the market. Because we won it again in 2008.
With whose coffee?
With Franklin Madrid.
Okay.
He's the owner of El Sauce. He's a well-known producer in the area. And he started, like to produce his coffee with the purpose of competing.
Okay.
And that was, like things were changing.
Can I ask what might sound like a silly question as somebody who isn't on the producing end of things? So when he's producing specifically for the competition, I suspect that he's paying a lot more attention to making sure it's specialty grade, right? Whereas when the gentleman that won the first time, when he submitted and you were saying that he was producing for commercial grade, what's the variable there? Because if he's just producing commercial grade coffee and he's not producing like with the intention of specialty grade versus somebody who is producing for specialty grade from the same region. So the terroir is the same, right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between those two producers, do you think? If one is producing that level of coffee commercially and another producer is having to specifically produce a crop for specialty?
So the first thing is the care, right? Like caring about the product, like from the picking all the way, to the delivery.
Mm-hmm.
So, like there are big differences. The first one is the picking, like for commercial grade, you pick whatever is on the tree that looks okay for sale, right? So you have there, like ripe coffee, underripe, some greens, some dry beans. A commercial coffee farmer will just pick the whole thing and deliver as it is.
And is that what happened with the person who won with, remind me of his name so I can be respectful. Was it Navidad? No. Who?
Natividad.
Natividad. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was he picking everything?
Exactly that. Yeah.
Wow.
He only happened to have, like great quality and the great location. And that was it, like not super perfect picking, not proper, like drying, like not proper storage, he just, like happened to have good quality until now. He's still, like in the program.
Did he change his methods after that? Or he still continues?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Everything changed for him.
Even though he won.
Everything. So, So basically, like that's what happened, right? Like after, Natividad won, like all of the farmers around him were like, oh, like he's got the same condition, we should just participate.
Yep.
And, but, like with a different idea, with different goals, right? So Franklin was one of them, and we placed, like a bunch of coffees in that competition. But then, like we won the first place again in 2009.
That's awesome.
And I say we because we were, like helping the farmers. Yep. We were coupling the coffees. We were collecting their coffees, telling them, what
which lots.
The best lots were. yeah, all of this, and like giving them immediate feedback, and also helping them with like transportation, advising, financing, all of the little things that are around like the process. And then we placed again in 2009, and then like buyers were like, what the heck's going on there, like why so many like Santa Barbara coffees like in the top 10, why this profile, right? Why this is happening, like they wanted to find out. And they decided to reach out to us directly because they wanted to meet the producers. They wanted to buy from the producers as well. So slowly we started to build this community, like of like the first steps of direct trade back then. And it wasn't really relationship coffee as it is now, like that the term is being used, but it was more like direct trade, direct buying thing. And
can I ask how you define the difference?
It's like not super complicated, I would say. Like relationship coffee, the word says it, right? It's like, sorry, this thing got disconnected.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So it's like being married, right?
I'm scared what direction you're going to take this.
basically, we made this commitment between, like the two parts, which is the buyer and the producer, like, and like we make this engagement of, like relationship with, like you as a buyer, like commit to buying these coffees.
Yeah.
And you as a producer commit to, like deliver good quality coffee that is worth the price that the buyer is going to be paying you.
Okay.
And, like this also includes details outside of that, like go beyond the typical business transaction of, like buying and selling, right? Like it's, like getting to know the farmer, you as a farmer getting to know the buyer, like discussing prices directly, like and doing that. And I think direct trade is more just, like the buying and selling operation between two parts as well, but a little bit less intimate, a little bit less tight, a little bit less of a bond there.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's more transactional
less
than it is relationship. Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah.
Before
Correct.
you go ahead, I just want to give a big shout out to everyone in Honduras that's listening. Just because we've had some comments in the chat, the live chat. So I just wanted to say a big shout out to everyone in Honduras who's tuning in. We're so grateful that you are listening and checking out this amazing human in our conversation here today. So thanks for tuning in. It's great.
I'm not able to see the messages, but I will. So.
So are you telling them to be nice? Everyone's very lovely.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a bunch of friends that we're ready for this and excited to watch.
And just if anyone, no one's posted anything in Spanish yet, but if you do, I can't read them, and Benjamin
I'll translate.
can't see them right now. So anyway, so then what happens? So going back to what you were talking about, you win a second time, and does that start to accelerate the focus on the Santa Barbara region?
Yeah.
Of Honduras and the way that you guys are producing coffee, but as well, do you become the contact for the region? Is that how people start to find out about you?
Yeah. So basically this is like when we win, like 2008 and 2009, like in we got more familiar with COE, and we got to know people that were judging.
Yeah.
Like buyers that were constantly coming year after year. And then, and because no one really from the Honduran Coffee Institute had a connection with the farmers, like we were the connection there.
Yeah.
We knew the producers. We managed the coffees. and like that was the way that to connect. So we were there, like, and happened to be there, and I started to get involved also in the negotiation tables, as we call them, during the event.
So you got to use your
like
degree.
Kind of.
It wasn't useless.
kind of. And like, and but this is like like years a bit of years later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to be like in the negotiation tables, like translating for the producers that were in the competition, because so basically the Honduran Coffee Institute and COE organized these meetings before the award ceremony. This is before people knew who won. Of like just the farmers asking questions to the judges, and the judges getting to know the farmers. So I was there helping them translate.
Wow.
And it was really good for me because I got to meet people there, and not only buyers but also farmers from other regions and from other areas of Honduras. So I was part of that. And it's funny because I didn't really speak English back in those days. During all this time, like when we started to connect with people, I like we saw the need, right, of like someone is needed to speak English. So basically, I had to go to the U.S. and get an intensive English class for 6 months just to learn English. And I was super eager to do it because I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Like some of my friends that are there watching, they know, and actually they made fun of me because I didn't really know how to pronounce it or how to say shit, like nothing.
Yeah, wow.
And like, and all of a sudden, like I had to go there and like and force myself to learn because I really needed that, because there were like people reaching out to us and we didn't really know exactly how to communicate properly and how to like interact. So
what's amazing about this story, Benjamin? Do you know the Lamastas family in Panama?
Yeah.
There's something really beautiful in the synergy between hearing you talk about how this happened to you and the way that Wilfred Lamasta Sr. and Jr. talk about the way that they were really integral in this same thing happening in Panama. It's like you're adapting to situations immediately. Wilfred Sr. was talking about how they saw specialty was happening. And they didn't know how to taste coffee. They had a friend over in Hawaii who happened to be working at the university in coffee. And they were a scientist over there. And so they called him and said, tell us what we're supposed to taste for good coffee. And over the phone, he taught them how to cup coffee.
I didn't know that.
If you get a chance to listen to the podcast episode, they came on twice so far. But if you get a chance to listen to the podcast, it's fantastic because he really talks about the history of how the Panamanian coffee has evolved to become a really, very well considered coffee producing region of the world, right? And it sounds like there's a real similar thing that's happened in the Santa Barbara region of Honduras in your story.
Yeah, and it blew up. And this is where I want to get to that. Like in 2010, this is when stuff got really crazy, and so we had so many coffees. That year was a big year. We had a lot of farmers that were super involved in participating. Like the market wasn't really super good, the C market. So people really had the motivation to do a specialty. So we got a lot of submissions. We put all these coffees in the competition, and we placed 17 coffees in the auction.
17 coffees placed?
Yeah, out of 25. That was the top.
That's amazing.
25. We placed 17. We had 9 coffees in the top 10.
Wow.
And like when the award ceremony was happening and the announcement was being done, everyone was like, "What the heck's going on?" Like even the announcers were like, "Blah blah blah. This farmer from which area? Santa Barbara." And they were like, well, we should just do, like a Santa Barbara COE. This is crazy. and there were some big names in the industry in that year judging, and everyone felt attracted, so it just blew up. after that. Like people wanted to know what was happening there.
Were you
People
in the
wanted
you
to
were
know
in the
what
room, right?
Yeah, I was there.
Can I ask you, what does that like when that's happening and you know you're a part of it? You know that you have a unique perspective because you're a part of putting all the work together on the back end that nobody else really gets to see. Could you tell that that moment was history making? Did it feel like that at the time?
Oh yeah,
Describe what it feels
totally.
like.
Because it's back, but because totally, because at that time we were aware what COE was.
Yeah.
Like we knew how important the event was.
Yeah.
Like we knew exactly, like where we were getting into, like, right?
Yeah.
Like in which market, and like, and happening to have that success was very meaningful, of course, and we were very proud of the work done, but not only for us, also for the farmers. Like seeing the excitement of the producers, like that for so many years they were completely, like unknown, and their coffees were just treated as normal coffees. Like coming from there to like being the top farmer in the country.
Gosh, the
Like
dignity.
being the top farmers in the country.
The dignity,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
That's such an important currency when you're anonymous in the commercial kind of sense. The producer, with all agricultural products, the producers are usually anonymous from the consumer end, right? Yeah. Now this program starts to bring a sense of dignity to producers. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, dignity and respect.
That's awesome.
And pride and all of these awesome things that we that, as you said, we don't really get that as producers, like. And now, like we're in the top, like, and everyone is, like very proud of, like having, like a certificate and a trophy,
recognition,
and better than that, like, and better than that, like seeing their reward in the auction, like when they, like get to sell their coffees for like $15, $20, $23 a pound, and they feel, like super proud, and it's great. And we happened to be there, and we got the opportunity. So all of these buyers that wanted to connect with these people, like we were the middleman. We were the middleman awesome. There, and we were like, cool, okay, let's see what else is there, like, and I personally started to talk to other producers and say, hey, like you should bring me a sample. We should give your coffee a try. We should see what we can find. And it wasn't until 2011 when we really, like gave the program a direction. Like we were like, like, okay, let's make this, like a thing. Like let's give this project a shape. And we created the specialty coffee program with our producers here with the support of the buyers. So 2010, 2011 were the years where we had, like an incidence of buyers, like here. We had people coming from other countries, like showing up and saying, hey, like I want to meet you and I want to meet your producers and I want to buy coffees, like from you, and let's do it. And we had a phenomenon also in 2011, and it was the seed market going up like crazy. Like seed market went up to $3, and it was as high as COE prices.
Wow.
Right. The COE price, the base price in 2011, I think it was like $3.50, and the market was already at $3.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of coffees. There were 38 coffees in the auction in 2011. 20 of those were from us, from our producers, amazing, including the first place again. But because there were so many coffees, the average price in the auction wasn't very high.
Right.
And you had at the same time the COE, but the C market price being like up there almost as the same as the base price of Cup of Excellence. So a lot of farmers were like, like we don't need to do this. We already get, $3 a pound from just commercial grade coffee.
We don't have to go to all that extra kind of trouble to make it specialty grade.
Extra work, extra trouble, extra pain, not necessary. So this is when the buyers came to play and say like, well, like we can offer you a more sustainable, better opportunity for you. We can pay you, like more than the C market for you to stay in the specialty coffee industry. That way we can keep buying your coffee.
And the C
And
market's
also,
not
like they
guaranteed to stay that way for any period of time, right? So it's much more volatile.
No, it's super volatile. You don't even, I mean, you don't really know exactly, sadly, like we don't really know exactly what's going to
From
happen.
moment to
we
moment.
wish the situation, we wish the situation was different, but we cannot determine what's going to happen with C market. So, like they were like, well, like this direct relationship sounds like better. So let's just do it. So we launched our program and we started to get a lot of people. So in 2012, like we started to see more and more farmers coming, and we were like, oh crap, now we need to find the market, because like our existing customers are not enough, like to buy all of these coffees that are coming.
Yeah.
And my dad, like always, was thinking ahead and thinking about the future, and he's like, we should just get prepared, like with better facilities, with like better infrastructure, but also with more market. So I basically decided to explore, like some of these markets, and I started, like traveling and visiting the customers that we already have, and I started to meet with more people, like, and these customers and friends that we already had, they were introducing us to other people. And this is when we started to create the community, and like, and I get to connect with people that now I are like great friends and partners that have been supporting us since then, and their business have grown. The businesses have grown, and like alongside with our business, and like it's been great, and it's been a good thing since then. And this is when I get to spend more time in the market or destination, as like we say, like and get to understand what is happening. And like this took me to like the Bay Area, and I got to spend some amazing time over there.
I know you're good friends with Percy. Percy and I met. He was one of the first coffee professionals I met when I came to the US. He's such an awesome human. He's such a great guy. Shout out to Percy if he ends up listening to this. But yeah, you were saying when we first spoke that you got to spend a lot of time with St. Frank, which is where Percy works, right?
Yeah. And this is because of my friend Kevin Bowling. He's the owner of St. Frank Coffee in San Francisco. I met Kevin in 2011 when he was a barista. So he came here to Honduras to visit his the farmer he was buying coffee from. Back then he was working for Ritual in San Francisco, which is like one of the first companies that decided to come here and buy directly, thanks to friend Ryan Brown, who happens not to be in the industry anymore.
Shout out to Ryan.
But but Ryan, it's like one of my mentors and like one of the most influential coffee persons in my life.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
And he said him and a bunch of other buyers set the basis of our program here, and like introduced us to Ritual, and then Kevin was working for Ritual, and he happened to participate in a regional for the first time, in a regional barista competition, and he won. He didn't win the regional, but he made it to the USBC.
Okay.
And his reward was like a trip to Origin to meet his producer.
Nice.
So I met Kevin here during that visit. He came with Steve Ford, the green buyer for Ritual at the time, to meet the producer, and I met Kevin, and we became friends, and we shared emails a lot after that. And I actually saw him compete in Houston in 2011, the same year he visited us. I got to go there and see his performance, and he placed sixth in the national. So it was great. So we became good friends, and he sent me an email once, and he's like, hey, like one day, like I would love to work with you. If I have my own, like cafe or roasting operation, I would love to buy coffee from you. And And then,
And did he, once he
you know,
opened St. Frank, he started buying from you,
no,
right?
no, no, no. Yeah, yeah. Oh, before that, before St. Frank was open, yeah, this is when things get funny, right? Because he's like, like, hey, I get an email from him, like later, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna do this, like I'm gonna open my own company, and I want to have a coffee. And I was like, oh crap, so I have to find a coffee. So I started to reach out to people, farmers here, and I got these siblings, these brothers,
Yeah.
like that happened to be producing their first harvest. And I was like, hey guys, do you want to give this coffee a try? And he's like, yeah, of course. They brought the sample to me. I tasted it. Coffee was great. And I was like, hey Kev, I got your coffee. And whenever you're ready, like I have the coffee for you. So he flew over here, like tasted the coffee and committed to the coffee. And we made a bet. And I told him, if the coffee, I'm gonna put the blind cupping for you. If that coffee that I separated for you is your favorite and you score that the highest, you have to train me as a barista.
Nice.
Because in those years I was trying to open a coffee shop.
Okay.
Which happened to
it ended up happening. Yeah, we had a conversation about that. We might talk some more about it today.
Totally. and yeah, that was his favorite coffee on the table. And he's like, well, like in this case, like I owe you, like a training. So you should, like come visit me, and you can, like stay with me in my house with my wife, and like, and I train you.
And this was 2012?
This is 2012.
Okay.
Correct. This is end of 2012, beginning of 2013.
Okay.
So in 2013, like I told Kevin, hey, I'm ready. Like I want to go. I want to go visit you, and I want to go and like and see San Francisco and see what's going on. And I bought a one-way ticket to SFO, and right when I get there, like I didn't really get my training. He still owes me that training.
Put him on notice now.
Yeah, I should remind him. Basically, I get there, and once I get there, he tells me, hey, like I have an opportunity to open a pop-up cafe. Outside of a bicycle shop, and I will need your help.
Okay.
So right after I got there, I just decided to, like work, help Kevin, like open cafes, like I learned everything about, like the planning and, like getting the contractor and, like all of the work.
All the things that people don't think go into opening a cafe. It's easy, right? You just get a table and you put an espresso machine on there and you get a cash register and buy some coffee, and all of a sudden you're making millions and millions of dollars. Like, it's that simple, right?
It's insane and expensive. That's how I summarize that, what you said.
No matter how many times I say to people who have not been in the industry, listen, it's nowhere near as easy as you think. Let me show you all the hidden things that you have to do. They're like, it can't be that hard. Loads of people do it. I'm like, I promise you, it's way harder than you think.
It was a pain, and it was, stressful for him, and I had to witness all that. And it was great for me because it was such an amazing experience, learning experience. Not only, like learning about how to open, manage, and operate a cafe, but also, like understand the consuming culture.
Yes.
Like right after he opened, like I was working as a barista there, and I would, like take care of people, like be the barista, like of course with a lot of limitations in communication and knowledge, but like I made my way and, like try to do my best. And I had that amazing experience to serve people, like that had a very different, like perspective to quality compared to what we have in our cultures, in our countries. Like people asking me about, like origins and profiles, and people asking me about, hey, give me, like a fruity floral coffee. And I was like, like this is amazing. This is a whole different thing. Like, and I happened to be there in a very, like progressive, multicultural
City.
city, like a San Francisco, like there was, like across the cafe, there was an office, like of people, that design satellites.
Yeah, wow.
Like, and these people who, like, I remember this girl, a girl from Japan who was, like working there for a season, and she's like, like, hey, what's your background? And I'm like, I'm a coffee farmer in Honduras, and I'm just working as a barista here
like,
for the moment.
Her mind's blown
like,
by
it. Yeah, and she was like, like, what?
That's amazing.
You're really from Honduras, and are you really a coffee farmer? And then she's like, yeah, I design satellites, and I was like, no big deal, right? I was like, I'm just
Aren't
no
cafes wonderful places to meet a whole melting pot of people who do 60,000 things in their life? Not one thing. Like, they're doing coffee, but they're also artists and musicians and scientists and all the other stuff.
So for me to learn all this culture was really helpful, because I was, like, like shoulder to shoulder with, like other baristas, with customers they already had, like Ritual was there, Siglass was there, Blue Bottle was there, so I got, like to also see my other customers that I had, like, and meet, and also, and a very important thing, Lee, like meet people from the industry that were, like coming to San Francisco to drink coffee, to be part of events. Like, I got to be in the Good Food Awards event, and I got the luck and the pleasure to be one part of the preliminary judges.
That's amazing.
And like big names in the industry were there. like George Howell. Like Cheryl from Cafe Grumpy in New York, Ryan Brown. Like Tony Connecting from Tonks, Ben Kaminsky, many big people in the industry, like happened to be there in the same room, and I was copying with them, like, and I got to learn from them, and like in the meantime, I got to work with them as well, because I made the connection, and I was able to, like sell them coffee. So it was kind of like big deal for me, like to have, like very limited experience, like, and not a lot of, like exposure, like being there, being with these people, like through Kevin, I met, like an amazing group of baristas, an amazing group of coffee professionals that now are, like my customers and now are my friends.
Do you think that having that first-hand knowledge of the consumer end of the market helped you when you went back to being based in Honduras in helping producers understand what you're aiming for to provide for people who are going to buy your coffee?
Totally. And from many different perspectives.
Tell me about that.
The first thing, like getting to know what consumers like.
Okay.
What consumers want to pay.
Right.
And what also and these are like key parts. And also what roasters and buyers are paying in other origins, and what type of qualities are getting from other origins. And and I got to learn how good some cheaper coffees can be.
Yeah.
How like okay some expensive coffees can be.
Yeah.
So like it helped me like build a strategy like for sales, and also like I brought immediate feedback to the producers and say like, hey, like buyers want you to plant this variety. This is the variety that people like. This is the type of profile that people like. They don't like naturals. They don't like honeys.
Let me just stop you there. I don't understand this hate for naturals. I love naturals. Not every natural. I know well-processed naturals. Like this, I hate all naturals. I hate all washed. I hate all this. I hate all that. It's a real problem.
Yeah. No. That was back then. Now it's a whole different thing.
I remember coming to the US back in 2009, maybe more like 2010, 11. And you'd hear so many people say like, no, we don't have naturals. They're terrible. Naturals are shit. They're too funky. They're too this, they're too that. And I'm like, wow, there's a real hate for naturals in the US. It was like a coffee culture thing here is like, you don't drink naturals.
I think it was a big influence for the reference markets that the U.S. had back then,
Okay.
which is like the North European culture, the Nordic countries, like they were, like doing such a great, I mean, and they still do, like such an amazing and great job. And I think, and they have that specific preference, which is something that had changed a lot back then, like now a lot of people, like buy these really good naturals from Ethiopia, like anaerobic fermentation process from, like Colombia or things like that, like even Wilford, like they have, like beautiful geishas, but now they're, like they are not now doing, like the ASD and the naturals. And I think the world record price for the geisha it's not a wash. I think it's a natural.
It's a natural.
I might be wrong.
I think you're right. I think it's a natural, and it's over $1,000 a pound, $1,029 a pound.
Yeah, something like that. So like that perspective has changed a lot. But back then, like it wasn't like that. So we were, like bringing all this feedback from the market, and I was, like with one foot in there and the other one in here, like just watching how things were evolving here and how things were evolving over there. Like from all the details from the consumers, because I was, like
on the front line
serving them coffee. Correct. From the consumers, also, like getting to understand, like how coffee equipment works, how like payroll works, how like a roasting operation, green buying, like I bought a bike during that time, and I would ride my bike every afternoon after my shift finished. My shift was in the morning, was the first one, so I would open and leave after lunch, and I would just ride my bike and go to Sightglass and go to Ritual down to the Mission to cup coffees with the guys over there, and just like to learn the profile of Costa Rican coffees. To like I fell in love with Kenyan and Ethiopian coffees. Like
that must have been a trip. Because were you drinking any kinds of Kenyan coffees and Ethiopian coffees in Honduras?
No, you never had that. Like never. Like we get a lot of like Costa Rican and Colombians, mostly for grocery stores. Like grocery coffees, but nothing like that. Like the coffee that blew my mind. Like I remember an Ethiopian. The name of that coffee is Hama. From Ritual, that was just like it changed my life completely, because it's so good, and also like different in terms of pricing. Like Ethiopian coffees happen to be cheaper, and I was like, how is this possible that an 87-point coffee can cost this much? Like this is unfair. And then I got to understand like the differences. Like but Ethiopian coffees are sold differently. Like back then, now it's changing. As far as I know.
What was that like for you? Like to start to experience coffees from different origins and start to get a more well-rounded understanding of how you've got this one very complex agricultural product produced in different parts of the world. You as a coffee producer, what does that start to do with the way that you start thinking about producing coffee?
I mean, a big influence, like the first thing that came to my head is to diversify. Like I tasted Ethiopians and, I was like, oh shit, I should get the Ethiopian varieties. I know it's prohibited and I can get them.
There's always a way, my friend. Can you tell I'm an Arab?
I mean, don't tell anyone, but we found a way.
I'm very proud of you.
I'm going to get in trouble for this.
You won't. No one from the government listens to this. It's fine. That's my Arab heritage going, yes, go for it.
Well, yeah.
Do all the illegal shit.
Yeah, but yeah, no, totally. It did influence the way I produce coffee now. And also, like I was back then, like working in the coffee company, right? And I was the exporter. And then, like when I was visiting these people, like they were like, oh man, it would be awesome to have your own coffee. You should be a farmer.
How did that conversation go down with your dad?
Oh, he didn't like it.
I imagine.
He hated it. Yeah, he was like, he's like, well, just make sure that you are aware of what's happening, right?
Was he
We have a
talking
lot
about
going
Roya,
on.
or was he talking about the workload that you had on?
No, he's just talking about the fact that I was trying to be a farmer, like considering all of the situations, like the first thing, the job that I already had, that it wasn't easy, that it's going to, but that requires and was going to require a lot of dedication and time, right? And then, like the investment, like it's not the same, like if you want to start from zero. So I just went for it, and he's like, well, you should just, like instead of trying to do that, you should, like let the farmers be the farmers, and you should be, like what you are, and just, like invest your time and resources in making that better, which is a very wise advice,
Right.
that I didn't take.
Well, you still don't have a
And
name for your farm. And it's still doing well, so that's a good thing.
yeah, that is a good thing. Thanks to, like all of the buyers that have supported me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I did it, and it's a whole different feeling, it's a whole different experience, like to see, like your name on a label, and, like to see, like someone, like that you have never met or have never seen, like that recognizes you. Like it happened to me when I walked into one cafe once, and a consumer is like, "Oh, you're Benjamin. I've had your coffee before," and I was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome."
I talk a lot about when I talk about entrepreneurship and doing hard things. You're someone who is a really great example of grit and doing the hard work that's required to actually achieve the dreams that you want and achieve the success that you want. And, money isn't a lot of the time something that comes as a reward for quite a while. But there are some moments that not even money can buy you. And that's one of those moments that you have to earn rather than you can pay for. Walking into a cafe and watching someone drink your coffee, you can't pay for what that feels like. There's no amount of money that will bring you that same joy, right?
I mean, when you work in the coffee industry, like you make the connection with money after you have either, like a big problem that is related to finances, or
a big win,
or like, or someone mentions it, but we don't really think about it, like. And I always tell people, if it was about money, like I would, like invest my resources in.
No one would
like
do it.
A fried chicken spot.
Chicken. We spoke about this in our conversation.
Yeah,
chicken shops.
Totally. Like I will open. Like instead of spending, like X amount of money in a coffee farm or a property for farming, I will just invest that in a fried chicken spot in my hometown. There are like 20 there, and all of them are really busy.
Yeah.
And I would do that instead of coffee. But like our perspective is different. Like it's a patrimony. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of living. So it's not really like just like because I want to become like millionaire or something like that. Of course, like it's one of the important things, because you need to pay like labor. You need like resources to invest. And you also need to eat and buy, like your shoes and your clothes and your stuff. And it's important, but it's not going to be always the first thing when you talk about it.
My friend Steve Chang, the owner of Copa Vida, he and his wife own Copa Vida. I know Steve. He's a wonderful human. Yeah. He's a wonderful, wonderful human, and when he came on the podcast, I'd known this story for a long time, but he told this story on the podcast about how when his family sold their noodle company, their noodle factory, he went on a journey to figure out what was going to be next. And so he felt that there was a calling to go into coffee. He'd never worked in coffee before. And so they went for a year, he and his wife, on a trip to different coffee producing regions. And they went and drank coffee in different countries and things like that. And he went to a farm, I believe it was in Costa Rica. And they spent a week on the farm learning about coffee producing and how to make coffee and all this kind of stuff. And by the end of the last day, they had a latte art class on the farm, and he got quite good at doing a heart or something like that. And he said, I'm going to be okay at this coffee thing. You know, I'm going to be a coffee person. And the woman he was talking to, she says, you don't know about coffee. And he says, how can you say that? Like, I love coffee. She said, no, you say you love coffee. I've been around coffee since I was a child. I love coffee. I have coffee in my blood. There's a difference between when you've lived around coffee all your life and what coffee means to people who just love to drink coffee. And from all the producers that I've spoken to on this podcast, I got to tell you, I have started to see a difference, like what you're saying, in the difference between the way we on the consuming end experience coffee and the way you have such a deep rooted connection to your passion and love for coffee, because you could go open a chicken shop. It would be much more financially profitable for you to do that, right? But there's something that keeps coffee producers grounded in coffee, whether it's that what they're doing is generational, or there's some like weird, beautiful element. Gilberto Barona spoke about it when he was on the podcast, and we were talking about, God rest his soul, we were talking about the way that COVID will separate people out. And he said, this is going to be really tough for all coffee producers. But by the end of it, you will know if you love coffee or not. You know?
Yep.
It's just really beautiful to hear coffee producers talk about coffee the way that you do, because you have this deep, deep love for what you do, more so than I think any person that I've ever met on the consuming end have for coffee. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And it breaks my heart that, I didn't get to meet him.
Oh man.
We were friends, just, through friends, like social media, but I never got to personally interact with him.
It's a great loss to our industry. It really is.
Yeah.
But, the great thing about it is we get to carry his legacy. We get to speak his name, and we get to mention all the great things that, he's another Cup of Excellence alumni many times over. But he had just been awarded his 18th Cup of Excellence the day before he passed. I mean, an extraordinary asset to our industry, and he'll definitely be missed. But you're the kind of protege that he is, was excited about. People like you being so committed to this idea of, I could do anything else. Like, there's loads of stuff that you could do, but you love coffee. That's why you do this.
I mean, it means everything.
Yeah. I know I mentioned this in our conversation the other day, or the other week, and I really meant it when I said it. You're like the Gilberto of the future. The way that you have paved, and I know you said back then, like, that's heavy words, but you really do remind me of him. Like, you remind me of the way that he spoke about coffee is the way that you speak about coffee. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see that somebody like you, who has done all this really challenging stuff, you helped pave a fucking industry in Honduras. Benjamin, like, that's no small thing. You get that, right? Okay.
I mean, I didn't touch any shovels. The farmers did. I did.
But you're a part of a movement. You're a part of of a movement and you're a very humble part of a movement that is, look, going from one country to another when you don't know the language and going and making connections with people. Yes, it's a privileged opportunity to be able to do that. I'm not saying that it's not. But there's a truckload of fear that's involved in doing that kind of stuff. And 99% of people, even when given the opportunity, turn around and say, I don't think this is for me. Because success is not guaranteed, right? And it's hard. It's hard to go to another country even when you speak the language. But you didn't even speak the language and you came here and you're like, all right, this is going to be good for me, but it's also going to be good for my future and the future of the coffee producers that I want to represent ultimately. And that's leadership. That's fantastic leadership. It's proactive leadership that positions you to become one day. It's the kind of thinking that Gilberto, like when he was telling me he was on the board of directors for KFC, for Kentucky Fried Chicken, locally. Like that's the kind of forward thinking that...
Maybe I should invest in the fried chicken thing.
There seems to be a theme, mate.
Yeah, that's that's a big responsibility there, to be compared with him. But yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. Honestly, I felt the pressure, I felt the stress, I felt the challenge.
Yeah.
I
bet you did.
Of the industry and also in that regard of what you're saying, to go out there and try to approach people. But the industry has been, the market especially has been very responsive, very interested, and very supportive, and they have facilitated everything for us. And the only thing that I've seen is opportunity. It's opportunity more than a challenge, and that's another reason why I work in this, because there's a lot of people out there that are very committed, and even without having a connection, with the coffee, as you say, like Steve, that he's didn't really know anything about coffee. Yeah. But there's a lot of people out there, architects, engineers, musicians, that just happened to pay attention on coffee one day and they got full into it.
Yeah.
And and meeting people like them, they're that's not their patrimony, that's not their life, they have never lived from coffee, putting so much into it, so much love, so much passion, so much work. It takes a lot of work. Sometimes coffee can be a real pain, that makes you cry and go crazy. I'm losing my hair because of that thing. I got a bunch of bald spots.
For anyone who's just listening to this and not watching, Ben Hameen just exposed us to what he thinks are bald spots, but don't look like they're bald spots very much at all. I think you've got a good head of hair there, sir, and a great beard. Your friends in the chat all love your beard.
Yeah, and and that's the awesome part, right? That you see people that have this very strong disconnection to what we're doing here, becoming fully involved and putting so much more than sometimes what we do, and taking it to the extreme. Sometimes it's a big joy for me, and this is why it makes us be very committed.
I want to pivot for a second with this. There's a part, something that you said before that gave me a thought that I haven't had before, and I like that. So if you don't mind, I'd like to pivot a little bit on when you said that Colin was sent back to, he won the trip to come to Origin, right?
Yeah.
So competition has played a big role for a lot of producers in getting them recognized.
Totally.
Where do you think that goes now in the era of COVID, given that competition can't happen. And that was a means by which a lot of producers were getting attention around their coffee. Now the competition, I don't think competition's going to happen for probably another 2 or 3 years. What hit do you think that that's going to have for producers around the world? If any.
Barista competitions for me have been always a promotion for our coffees, like a market window,
right,
for us. A free one. We don't have to, we pay, people pay for our coffees to compete with them and present them and promote them and put our names out there.
Yeah.
Like for us, like for me, like to get that excitement of knowing, that a coffee company, it's, like using one of our coffees or isn't my own coffee, like it's such an excitement. But at the same time, like if a barista using our coffee, like succeeds, like all of the cafes, baristas, roasting operation owners that are around that in those competitions, like they want to know what that coffee is.
That coffee goes off, right?
Correct. Yeah. So, like, and all of a sudden, like, people want to buy the same coffees. Look,
right.
Like a successful farms, like that have done this really well. Like Wilford is one of them, like La Palma y El Tucán.
Oh, yeah, La Palma.
What Felipe and his family and his team have done, like it's amazing, like the top, in the top 6 in the World Barista Championship, like the top 6, there were 3 coffees from him.
From La Palma.
From La Palma.
From him and Elisa.
Yeah, and Elisa, yes. Yeah, from him and Elisa. And
you have to make sure you mention her because it's not just him.
I haven't really had the opportunity to interact with her. I met her once.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome.
And
Both
I
of
haven't
them
had the pleasure to. Yeah, I haven't had the pleasure to really talk to her a lot. Mostly with, like with
Felipe.
With Felipe and Sebastian. But like I was jealous. Like when I was seeing, like them, because I was with them during the award ceremony and like standing next to him. And Carlos, the guy who like helped them with all the agronomic part and all that, and I was just like super jealous and I was like, oh man, I wish I like had some tasty sidra like to put that in the competition like or something interesting to that, and and how much they have worked for that, like time invested, marketing, all this, and like having this success, and now like they have a big presence there are definitely going to be affected.
Yes.
Because, like that's a way to promote, and, and we all want that opportunity, like we all want to be in that window, like presenting our coffees through people. And I've been there, like Charles Babinski, like when he placed second in the worlds in the WBC in 2015, he was using one of our coffees.
Awesome.
And it's such a big deal, not only for him and for his company, but also for us as a country.
Yeah.
And it's sad that like sometimes these types of competitions are not super recognized, like or are not being promoted the way they should, in my opinion, in some places.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, for example, like like here, for example, like we don't have like a brewers competition.
Why don't you start one?
I wish I could do it.
I know that you don't have anything else to do right now. You very lazy.
But I will do it. I will do it. I will do it, but like we're not getting the same, like support like as other people. Like we don't have a very strong specialty coffee organization here in Honduras that would say, like, hey, let's do this. There is a lot of support from the marketing department of eCafe. Like they always are working, trying, to get, like the at least the barista competition going. And we had a great one in the last couple of years, but before that we didn't have it for like 1 year because there was no budget for it. And, like, and we're missing out. We're missing, like, this opportunity not only to present our coffees out there, but really develop the barista culture that really helps rise the coffee consuming aspect of in
At
our
origin.
local.
And
Totally.
that's a really important thing right now, because in the middle of a pandemic, in order for you guys to see, I guess, the positives of what could come out of this, developing a local consuming population is perhaps going to have great ripple effects long term into the future, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because you have a
Totally.
cafe, not a chicken shop.
No, I know. And, like, and I want to be successful, and I want to serve great coffee, like, and I want people to understand, and there's a limitation from the people, like, because there's a big chunk of our consumers that they don't understand quality.
Yep.
Like that, like that they make fun of, like of the baristas, of the people, like making pour overs, and they say, it takes fucking forever. And there is a pain in the ass, and it's like,
They just want to come in and go.
Just makes the coffee more expensive and blah blah. Coffee should be simple, and cheap. But like a specialty coffee is not cheap, like.
No.
I mean, I would say all of the coffee is not cheap. Like there are small farmers producing commercial grade coffee that have to put a lot of work and efforts in that as well, and it doesn't have a value right now.
There's a difference that we're trying to have as a distinction on this podcast between cheap and fair. So we're trying to make sure that, people will look at commercial coffee and say, oh, commercial coffee is cheap. Don't buy cheap coffee. And it's not that, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. It's not that people shouldn't be buying cheap coffee. It's that people need to be making sure they're paying a fair price for cheaper coffee. There's a
Correct.
distinct difference, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You are correct. We should value coffee more.
Yep.
Like if coffee was valued because of all the work and responsibility that it takes to make it, coffee will be, like very expensive.
Yep.
Coffee will be very, very expensive. But, like a commercial grade producer right now, where the price is, like they cannot pay their employees well. They cannot, like harvest well. They cannot fertilize well. So this is going to drop the quality down. And, and then the cost is going to be, the reaction is going to be that they are going to get even cheaper prices. Like feeding the local community, the local consumption properly will help fix this. Like people will be open to pay more for coffee and better for coffee and consume it in a different way as well. That will like make the work of the producers and all the supply chain, like profitable and successful. And like this is the difference with a specialty coffee that has, like a very supportive community that are willing, like to invest in this, knowing the value of it. But also, it is true, and we have to recognize it, that in the cup, maybe commercial coffee doesn't have the same value. But in the whole context of producing it, like it has a lot of value because
it's got the majority of the value. It's the most. It's like, it's over 85% or something of the coffee that's consumed around the world. Like we like to think that specialty is the answer to everything, but it's still just a tiny fraction of the market.
Correct. And not all the farmers can produce a specialty coffee, like.
Especially during COVID.
Yeah, no, it's impossible. I cannot go to a producer who has, like a farm at 600 meters that I know that there's no way that the quality is going to go up. I cannot go there and request him to, like, hey, can you do this process to make your coffee better? Because there's no way that it's going to get better. Like, how can we do it?
Yeah.
Through certifications. Yeah, we try to like certificate to add more value, but is that really sustainable for you? Is that going to make you, be profitable and, like make your business as a coffee farmer successful? Yeah. Maybe not. So we need to find different ways to market it. So I think this is why, like barista competitions are important, because they don't really, like, it's not that you are going as a consumer, you're going to, like be drinking the coffee the same way that the baristas are doing it in a competition, right? It's not the case. anywhere. You know, like you as a barista, you cannot really perform and serve the same way. The same way if you have a 40 people line, you know, like waiting for they to get service, it's not the same. And it's not, that doesn't mean that we're gonna be, you know, like serving the same way, but you know, at least has an impact to people understand and appreciate coffee better just because of the care that these people is putting in it. So that's the positive impact, in my opinion. And people started to understand here in Honduras, luckily. You know, like we have the blessing that people started to understand. You're like, hey, well, what's up with the barista? You know, like what's the coffee today? And you know, like, what are you serving? And why this coffee? What's the difference in between this coffee and that? And my friends that are looking, actually, you know, all of them consume our coffees. And my coffees, for example, you know, like, and they like a few days ago, one of them was asking like, hey, what's the difference in between this bag and the other bag? We have two different grades, right? We have the, you know, like the below 84s and the above 84s. And they're like, yeah, we want to know, you know, like what's the difference? We want to understand. And, you know, like that's the kind of reaction that we want to from consumers, because they understand, you know, like a little bit more of what's happening with the coffee. And if you tell them that there's, you know, like an additional value, for example, the relationship that I have with them is the value. That's why they buy my coffee.
Yeah,
you know, like
they want to support your success.
Correct. So if we had the same mentality, you know, as my friends have, and you know, like they wanted, and everyone will, you know, like just buy the coffee just because they want to, you know, like help support the producers, you know, like fix the market, you know, like the market would change completely forever. But, you know, like sadly it's controlled by forces that, you know, like
huge, massive, big conglomerate companies that are buying, you know, 100 million pounds at a time. they're monopolizing buying power by buying huge quantities. I heard a number that was mentioned on this podcast by someone from Nestle. And Nestle sells 3,000 cups of coffee per second of every day. That's astronomical. For people who are listening, Benjamin's just shaking his head. It's like this look of dismay, and he's shaking his head going, "Oh, yes, that was someone from Nestle said that number." I mean, it is quite astronomical that when you think about it. I mean, specialty coffee shops don't have a shot anytime in the near future of achieving those kinds of goals. When commercial grade coffees, the majority of people are consuming commercial grade coffee either as instant coffee or as, you know, diner style coffee or service station coffee or gas station or whatever you want to call it. That's how most people are consuming coffee, is easy to drink, ready to drink, really dark roasted coffee. And so because a lot of the flavor profile is hidden by the roast profile, they target the cheaper coffees and they buy en masse. And so why would they invest in specialty grade coffee when their consumers aren't really going to taste it anyway? It's like buying blue label Johnny Walker for an alcoholic that drinks whiskey from morning till night. To them, it just tastes like whiskey. They don't give a shit if it's blue label or if it's normal whiskey. It's. I'm not going to say it's a waste, but it doesn't land the way that the person who put the care and the effort and all of that into producing the blue label Johnny Walker, it's just not going to land the same way. What do you think we have to do as an industry to get more people drinking a specialty coffee?
I think it's a matter of education. You know, like there was a time when I didn't drink any specialty coffee, right?
St. Frank changed that?
A part of that, yeah, of course. But, you know, like all of the whole industry, you know, all of the customers that I had, all of the people that were involved in that. And also, you know, like when you find out about it and you're like, oh shit, I'm not going to go back to what I had, you know, like not only because of the quality, but also that is special attachment that you have with the product
Yeah.
is very unique. But I think, like if we as a coffee producers and as a roasters and as a baristas, like we communicate properly what we are trying to achieve, what to do, and what we have, like I think people will be into it. And it's already, that movement is already happening. Like we have become loud enough in the industry to, like to be identified and to be noticed, and like and to have an impact, and like even people recognize, like the industry, even if they don't consume it, they know it, they know about it. So it's just a matter of, like introducing properly, like what we can do and what the final impact it's doing and where it's going. And I think, like we're gonna get a lot more recognition, and I think we're in a great path. Like we have to, like just forget a little bit about what's happening, sadly, with all this mess of the COVID.
Do you think we can? But, do you think we can forget about what's happening?
We cannot. We cannot, because it's a big problem, a heavy one that is, like threatening our lives and every single aspect of our life right now. I know not, but like in general, I think the coffee people that are representing origin in countries like yours, and like Europe, in I don't know, Australia,
yeah.
Asia, like Japan, like they are doing a great job representing what we're doing as a producers, and they have done a lot for us, like repeating our names out there, like commenting about us, posting about us, serving the coffees, like putting our names on the labels, like sometimes the name of the producer is bigger than the brand.
What does that mean? I mean, I think I've always wondered, like, do producers care that we do that?
A big number of them, yes. Oh yeah. And there's a big involvement from producers right now in the industry through social media. Like the technology is really making that happen even more. Like I know farmers that never had, like a freaking smartphone, and now like they download Instagram or like Facebook, and they start to like to follow, like their buyers and the companies, and commenting on the pictures and having this interaction and sharing what the roasters are posting about them. It's pretty special and very unique.
That's so good to know.
And people care. Of course, there's a niche of producers that they just want, like to make sure that they sell the coffee, right? But in the other hand, you have a big amount that they really care. Like they always ask, where's my buyer coming? Like what they do with my coffee? Like how do they serve it? Like why do they roast it that light? Like all these questions about what cafes are doing, and they really want to know, and they really want to understand. And of course, like they have, like if they have the chance to get their own bags of their own coffee, that's like a trophy.
Is it really?
That's a huge. It's amazing, like I want to have, like bags with my coffee, with my name on them. It's super cool. Not only, like that you feel that pride, but it's also really cool, and they get it. Like people, roasters all the time bring stuff. They bring merchandise. Like T-shirts. Like things.
Yeah.
And you go to their farmers' houses, and you'll see, like that they have the bags, like in their living room, or like they have some art that the roaster brought, like they have it hanging on the wall, and they feel super proud. And
that's really good to know.
Oh yeah, totally. And I wish, I know, like a lot of people promote these, but like. I wish, that people paid more attention to these type of things. Like I wish that people put, like promote more, like the producers' activities, of what they do and who they are. Some people care, some people don't care, and I've seen it on the postings. Like people, you put, like a nice, like like a person with a cat in a coffee shop, like with a fancy latte art. It gets all of the likes, right?
Yeah.
But if you put the face in a producer, probably it's not going to have the same impact.
Yeah. That's the big problem that we have, right? Is how do we get consumers to care?
Yeah, but if they knew, like that the farmers are aware of what's happening, and if they had interactions with them,
Yep.
that would be really cool. And there's a lot of people, a lot of consumers that are super into it, and still a lot of them are not, right?
Yep.
A lot of them are not. But the ones that are into it are doing a great job, an amazing job. But it would be wonderful if we get more and more people into this as well.
We're constantly trying to find ways, and it's one of the big questions on this podcast and Map It Forward as a brand is always looking for ways that not that coffee shops can promote producers, because I think that a lot of coffee shops, we don't need to convince coffee shops that they should promote producers. They're already onto that. They want to do that. The big problem is how do we get consumers to care that we have information to give you about producers? How do you want to digest that information? What's the best way? Should we give it to you on a card? Do you want to see videos on Instagram? Do you want to see it on our website? Like what do we need to do where you're going to realize that what we do is we'd responsibly buy coffee, and that's a big deal because we're not taking part in a value chain that doesn't respect the work that the farmer's doing. I even know with my own brand, Elixir Specialty Coffee, it's a bottled beverage. It's very fancy. And we have a hashtag, this is your coffee farmer. And so when we release a new coffee as Elixir, we try to inform our audience about who the producer is. And it's amazing how little engagement you get because consumers here in America don't care about the value chain. That's an overgeneralization before people come at me and hunt me down and say, no, all consumers care about this and all consumers care about that. I'm like, well, it's just not so. We like to romanticize it, but really the consumers that come from the industry. So specialty coffee professionals in their consuming practices are very aware of the producers. But the average person that's buying a cappuccino with 2 sugars in a takeaway cup, if you're going to try and tell them about this amazing producer in Honduras, Benjamin Paz, who has no name for his coffee farm, they're not going to care. I think you should call it Finca No Name.
Finca No Name. It's got a lot of nicknames.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Finca No Name. You should,
that's one of them.
You should, whatever the interpretation for no name is in Spanish, that's what you should call it. Finca No Name in Spanish.
Finca sin nombre.
Huh?
Finca sin nombre.
Sin nombre. I think that sticks. And people will get curious. It's very gimmicky. Anyway, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like there's, especially when people's attention span is so short, their intention behind, I just want to go into my cafe. I want to order my coffee off an app and I want to walk in there. I want to grab my coffee and I want to walk out and keep thinking about how I have to not forget to drop my child off at school because if I leave them in the car, then something's going to happen. They've got so much to think about in every moment that when I was a barista, standing there and trying to convince them about why they should care about the producer, they didn't want to know. Just give me my coffee.
Yeah.
And
I believe me, I experienced that.
Yeah, no, I'm sure personally. You did. And you're a producer. Like, I wish we had, I've been thinking recently about bread. I love bread. And with the lockdown, I've been trying to learn how to make bread in different ways. So in the Middle East, we eat flatbread. And over here, we eat a lot of sourdough here in America. And I thought, I want to try learning how to make different kinds of bread. So I learned how to make sourdough, and then I learned how to make flatbread, which is like tortilla, but sort of different. And I started to notice a difference in flour. And it wasn't until I started making my own bread that I started to realize that I should find out where the flour that I'm using has come from, because I notice that the flour I eat is affecting my body differently, and it makes the bread taste different. And the relationship between different types of flour and different types of water are affecting how my bread's turning out in all the different ways that I'm trying to learn how to make it. It's not until I started to go to that level of making bread that I start to really want to build a relationship with the agricultural product. And I can spend half an hour trying to choose flour in a supermarket. It's so fucking ridiculous. But I'm reading the label, trying to figure out, is this a flour that's come from Italy? Is it GMO? Is it organic? What pesticides have they used? What part of the US has it come from? What kind of wheat is it? Now I care. Before I didn't. Before, when I was just buying my loaf of bread from my favorite baker, I let them make the decisions for me. I trusted them to make the decision for me. Just make sure my bread tastes as good today as it did yesterday. That's all I cared about. But now I'm responsible for making it. And I'm like, oh, this must be how people feel about coffee.
Totally.
So I'm trying to find an answer to how do we get people to care about the coffee that they're buying. And I think the pandemic is a wonderful opportunity, because people have to make their own coffee a lot of the time now in their own houses. And with a lot of my consulting clients, we're working on using this opportunity as a way to educate consumers. So rather than giving them one coffee as a part of their subscription, give them 2 coffees and make them from different parts of the world, different origins, so that they can start to taste them side by side. But we'll see if it has an effect. I'm not sure how we get this message through to people.
I think we have a great opportunity right now, because a lot of people, let's say a person who regularly gets their coffee in a
supermarket,
insanely busy cafe, or in Times Square, for example.
Okay.
There's I don't know, they do thousands and thousands of transactions a day, and there's just people comes into one door, grab their coffee, and they pay and they leave.
Yep.
It's
there's no engagement or interaction.
No engagement at all. And now that they are at their houses, and they want coffee, and they go into a website and they buy a bag, and they finally have the chance not only to enjoy the coffee, but get to know the coffee, to read what's on the label, because they don't usually get that on their to-go cup, to read what's on the label, all of the information. I think it's a great opportunity, and I have friends, that are regular consumers in the US that will, ask me, hey,
what coffee
would you recommend to me? What should I buy? What they think that I'm the coffee expert, right?
Well,
and
you're kind of hard, bro.
Kind of. But not like a level of the owner of a roasting company in the US, right? It's just a whole different thing, or anywhere.
You're more of an expert
buyers.
than they are. You grow the stuff.
Kind of.
On your no-name farm, Finca No Name, you grow the stuff. You produce it at you mill it at San Vicente. And you've worked in cafes. You own a cafe. I think that everyone in the world who keeps telling me that I have to talk to you knows that you're more of a coffee expert than you're prepared to admit.
I mean, kind of, but I'm just saying in that specific topic of you know what I'm trying to say.
I think you're beautifully very humble. It's wonderful to see somebody that has done so much hard stuff. Be very humble in stepping into you've literally touched every aspect of the industry. right?
Not all of them.
What haven't you done, Benjamin?
I don't know.
There you go. There's that humble thing that
Instant coffee.
okay, there's a market that you'll be able to try and get into one day when you have some time spare.
But
listen,
yeah, but
we have a hard stop in about 20 minutes. So there's something that I specifically want to ask you about, and we could talk for another 16 hours and we wouldn't run out of shit to talk about. You're delightful to have a conversation with, and I hope we continue to have these conversations. But there's something that I really want to ask you about before we run out of time, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
When Felipe recommended I have a chat to you, it was because he and I were having a discussion about COVID. We were just having a catch up on the phone about COVID. And we were talking about how different origins are experiencing COVID and how that is affecting people in the coffee producing communities from a healthcare perspective as well as logistically, and what kind of tension there is around that. We haven't spoken to anyone from Honduras on the podcast around this subject. And I'm wondering if you'd be so generous to share some insights into what's happening in Honduras with regards to coffee producing and the effect that COVID has had on the coffee producing region, different regions in Honduras.
Well, I can just summarize it in two things. Uncertainty and fear.
Okay.
Like no one knows what's gonna happen, right? I mean, it's been just a complicated thing that it scares every single person.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just by the fact that you have to to walk out there on the street and there's a risk that you get infected, and no matter if you're healthy, or you are or the probability that you can die from getting infected is low, just by the fact that you can, infect other people or affect other people's lives. It's super scary. Mm-hmm. And, and Honduras is not the country, I would say, there's no countries that were ready for this. No one was really ready for this.
No.
But I think, and I believe that we had the chance to take measures. We had the chance to prepare as a country as a whole, including the government. But I think, a lot of bad decisions have been taken, and that it's putting our life in risk right now. We don't really have a strong economy. We have a very corrupted political system, and the way that the government is managing everything, it's really bad. It looks like a joke. It's like a really bad movie.
Wow.
Right? It's just unbelievable things that you this is not yet like for example, releasing a budget, that it's I don't even remember how many millions and millions
in debt
are destinated to to invest in hospitals, for example, and 0 hospitals have been built. Just this little temporary
shelters,
things that look like tents, like shelters, that are really bad, that are don't dignify the need of
the people,
of a sick person, right? Yeah. And there's right now a big mess with a hospital that was bought from a different country, and the hospital is stuck in customs because the documents aren't clear. Seems like the customers and the documents and the invoices were manipulated. Some bullshit like that is just stupid, and we are not a super rich country. There's a lot of poverty, a lot of people that are really vulnerable and exposed, and and there's like people that are getting sick and they cannot get, like access to good health services because the good health services in the country doesn't exist. And if you think about, like Italy and Spain or the US, there are like first world countries that really struggle.
Yeah.
Like I cannot imagine what's going to happen with us, that we don't have the same capacity, like to manage this thing. So it's really bad. And like, and we all are embarrassed, but at the same time we are all guilty of, like not, like taking, like the responsibility and doing something ourselves as a population. Like the government is just doing whatever they want, and everything they have done, it's really bad. And in terms of the coffee, like we were affected, of course, not only here in the farms, but also, in the market, which is the sensitive part. Like seeing our customers struggle, like seeing our customers closing their businesses, like seeing their sales dropping, like 80, 70, 60% has been hard because we know what's going to happen. Like they will have to reduce what they are buying because they already had coffees in their position because they projected and they're purchasing before and they have contracted, like before the COVID came. So we kind of like expected that things were going to go weird, but luckily we have, like a big support from our buyers. Yeah, like not all of them sadly were able to, like to manage this properly. Some people really struggle and got hit really, really hard. And they had to change their business model or their purchases model in order to survive. Like we had a bunch of them, but at the same time, we had a lot of people that really supported us and, like, and made the sacrifice of taking all of the coffee we produced no matter what. So in that part, we are protected and we feel very happy and supported here. And luckily we were able to, like harvest, collect the coffee, dry it, process it, and being able to collect it and export. Exportations haven't stopped. Everything is continuously moving, luckily. So we're good in that part. But, like we still feel vulnerable. We have the fear of the fear of getting infected. And like we are waiting for, like some hope and some opportunities, like to get that safety and that health security that we need. And hopefully we're going to get that from the government.
And it sounds like you're waiting for leadership.
Oh, totally. There's a completely, there's a big lack of leadership. We were not getting that, from our governments. Like the local municipalities, some of them are doing a great job. The local associations of people in the communities are also doing a great job, really caring about people, like working, in order to help their communities and all that. But, like in general, like there's that lack of leadership from our governments, from, like just the president saying, like, oh, like this is going to be done this way. And, like, and there's not going to be, like any weird issues. And that's what we have, like weird problems, corruption, this, like rotten system that is, like making us go backwards. And it's like
happening over here too, mate. Trust me. The corruption and all of it. Nobody knows what they're talking about. Everyone's pretending that they know what's happening. And, I think, leadership is such a big theme this year, isn't it?
Oh, totally. And we need that, like we need people that, like are not afraid. We need people, like that, like speak, like the truth out there and say, like this is what's happening. But, like, but I don't see there's a way to solve the situation in Honduras, sadly, right now. We will need people from other countries to come here and fix it for us. Because the same group
Don't say that. America's listening. You know what happens when America goes to another country to fix shit.
I think Trump doesn't care, and I hope he does. And I hope he really doesn't care about us. Yes.
You don't want that juju, mate. Juju is a word for like energy. You don't want that energy coming your way. That could be challenging.
I'm not entitled or allowed to, like speak about that. I'm just sorry about all this for you guys.
It's look, it's an interesting time for everyone globally. I think that for us in the coffee industry, a big concern for us, because we're quite removed from it right now, is how are producers doing and what's happening for you guys. I mean, we're experiencing a lot of trauma on the consuming end. A lot of people are going to lose their businesses and their jobs and et cetera, et cetera. And that seems to be getting a lot of attention. But what we're not getting an insight into is, what are the problems that producers are experiencing? What are some of the solutions and how can we help with those? So it's a big reason why I want to understand from you, like, what are the problems that you guys are experiencing in Honduras with regards to, so where are you guys at with the harvest?
So we're pretty much done.
Excellent. That's fantastic, right?
Everything is pretty much done and we have ready to ship, but we do need help. And actually, I want to use this opportunity, and I hope we have time. We have like 30 minutes.
Well, you can take a few more minutes than that. My big problem, and the reason we have the hard finish, is because there's construction happening upstairs and you will just hear loud banging. And I have told them they're not allowed to do any construction while we're on this podcast. So we have a hard finish in about 10 minutes. So we've still got some time.
Yeah, no, we basically, seeing, like our customers struggle and seeing people that were not able to take coffees, and or buy the whole crop from producers, like we are in the need of finding homes, like for these coffees.
Right.
So if there's people out there, like that happen to have a space, or because they were very conservative about their buying, knowing what was going to happen with COVID, and now they have a space to buy on the spot, like, or have a space in their inventory, like if they are looking for coffees and support, like we would be more than happy, like to get that help and work on with that, like there's, like a lot of good coffees, good opportunities for direct relationships with coffee producers here that are there. And like I have reached out to people and we have had a lot of positive requests. And actually my friend Kevin from St. Frank and I created this program called the Bonaventure Coffee Project. Mm-hmm. And you can look that on Instagram. Basically we just, posted, created this program and posted about the actual situation that we had with the coffees and with these, like roasters that couldn't buy all of the coffees because of COVID, because they had to close. So we have all of these coffees without homes, like good coffees that, like in relationships, new producers that this year was, their first time producing a specialty, and they, like because of the reason that we all know, like there was a lot of limitations for promoting, like they lost their opportunity to sell coffees. Yeah. So we're trying to get these coffees and sell them. So basically,
mention the name again.
Bonaventure Coffee Project.
Okay, I'm going to get you to send me the link to that. We'll make sure that the link is included in the show notes, and I'll make sure that we include this as a clip that we post on Instagram so that we can let people know about it.
Totally, and thank you for that, Lee. And and this is a platform, like that will, like present coffees for companies that have a space, for companies that are interested in getting their own relationship and buy the coffees. So we will be, like, it's not, that we're selling coffee on the spot or something like that. It's just, like we're trying to make more connections with people, that have room, with farmers that have the quality and the coffees. Yeah. So we have had, over 15 roasters that have reached out to us, presenting, their interest in supporting us, that they have room, or they are looking for a direct relationship, or they have, wanted to buy coffees from origin, but they didn't have the opportunity to do it in a very direct way. And not only through Bonaventure, but also, like we have great customers and great partners all over that are, like selling our green coffee and also selling our roasted coffee. Yep. Just, like people listening to this or watching this, like they can buy, like green from or partner companies there and also, like buying from roaster partners that are selling, like roasted coffees, or they already have, like their cafes open that they're brewing and serving the coffee.
Yeah.
So just like, like purchasing any of that, like would be a huge support for us.
Well, let me see what I can do with getting some people in contact with you that might be able to help. We'll definitely do everything that we can to get the word out about the project. And
thank you.
We just want you guys to know that we are here to support you. I know that the history of the way that the consuming end of the value chain has gone, that it feels like there's a real disconnect in the past, in our history, between the people at the consuming end of the industry and at the producing end of the industry. And there's a real desire to bridge the gap and to, hopefully, this is the goal, is to redistribute the power across the value chain from sitting mostly with roasters to being able to redistribute that back through the value chain. And we're going to do everything that we can to continue to get that message out there and to continue to let people know that, listen, like without producers, we don't have an industry. And our number one priority needs to be in making sure that we create a sustainable future for producers, because that means that we end up creating a sustainable future for all of us. And without them, we're nothing. At the end of the day, that's the reality of it, right?
I mean, thank you for seeing it in that way. Like, like we're grateful to have, like people like you that are supporting us, and I would say the same thing. Like without the market, without all of the consumers that come and buy coffee every day, and like buy our bags, and like that, like buy our green coffee, like and invest in our patrimony, like without you, we wouldn't be able to, like to survive.
And that's the thing; it's symbiotic. We need each other to exist, but the balance of power seems to be skewed one way right now. And we need to redistribute that power so that there's more respect and dignity that ends up on the producing end. And that's a real mission. That's a lot of the focus of what Mappa Forward is going to be about in 2021. This year, a lot of our main target focus was on leadership. Next year, we're trying to look for functional ways that we can help redistribute power across the value chain and the messaging that we can do that. So if you have any ideas, that let me know.
Let's keep talking.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we can do, and to make all of this like work better for everyone. And I'm down.
Can't wait.
I'm down for anything.
Benjamin Paz, what an absolutely wonderful conversation. I think then by the next time we talk on this podcast, I want Finca No Name to be officially Finca No Name. Or at least something better than that.
I'll work on it. You think about names and let me know.
I feel like everybody's thinking about the right name for your coffee farm. It's hilarious. Well, thank you so much for your time. And
no, thank you.
I'll make sure that we include the links to everything in the show notes once this episode goes live.
Oh, no.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you
for
for
your
the time. No, thank you for the time and for the opportunity. The pleasure is mine, and very nice to talk to you.
Likewise, it's my absolute pleasure. Thanks, and I can't wait to have you back on again. We'll talk soon.
No, thank you. I look forward to it.
Peace, love, and peanut butter, everyone. Thanks for listening. And especially thanks to our friends from Honduras that tuned in for the first time. We wish you well and safety and happiness. Bye, everyone.